Welcome everyone to a new video in the deep space. We've left Earth orbit behind and we are now officially on our way to the Moon, tucked safely inside the Apollo command module. Today we're going to perform one of the most iconic and critical maneuvers of the entire mission, the transposition and docking maneuver. So what is this maneuver? Well, imagine you left your suitcase in the trunk of your car, but you're already driving on the highway, and now you somehow have to flip the car around, grab the suitcase, and then keep driving, all while floating in space at 28,000 kilometers per hour. No big deal, right? Here's the actual situation. Right after launch, the lunar module, the little spacecraft that will actually land on the Moon, is tucked away inside the top of the rocket, right behind us. We have to turn the command module around, fly back toward the lunar module, and dock with it, connecting the two spacecraft together so we can take it with us to the Moon. It's a bit like cosmic Lego. But if you miss, you're just drifting alone forever. No pressure. So today we're going to attempt this tricky ballet move in zero gravity. Let's see if we can perform the transposition, docking and extraction, just like the real Apollo astronauts did. Hopefully without smashing into anything. Alright, let's get started. First step, separate from the rocket's third stage. I just followed the pre-CSM separation checklist, and now I'm working through the CSM separation prep checklist. Let's start with the COS. That's the Crew Optical Alignment Sight, basically a fancy space periscope that helps us line up the docking. I'm leaving it off for now because there's a little bug in VR that causes a pretty big frame drop when the COS is enabled. I'll switch it on only when I really need it, just before docking. Gotta keep those frames nice and smooth. I'm flying with the Pimax Crystal Light, so I'm fully immersed in crystal clear virtual reality, as always. Honestly, if you have the chance, I really recommend flying in VR. It's the only way to actually feel like you're inside the cockpit, whether it's the Apollo, the Space Shuttle, or even a tiny Cessna. There's just nothing like turning your head and seeing the switches, the dials, the Earth slowly drifting outside your window. Pure magic. Alright, moving on with the CSM separation prep checklist. This is where we make sure everything is set up perfectly before we actually separate from the SIVB stage. Now I'm setting the ASCP to 180 degrees yaw, mainly to stay on track with the checklist. The ASCP, or Altitude Set Control Panel, is how we tell the spacecraft which direction to point by setting specific pitch, yaw and roll angles. In this case, 180 degrees yaw will rotate us to face the SIVB stage, where the lunar module is. I'll be doing the actual rotation manually later though. All right, let's move to the CSM separation. There we go. Everything should be set up and we're ready to separate from the SIVB stage. Ready, steady, go. Okay, we're floating free now. I'm going to throttle up just a little to reach about plus 0.05 in delta V. This small forward push will give us enough distance from the SIVB so we can safely perform the 180 degrees rotation without risking a collision. We need a bit of breathing room before we spin around to face it for docking. Now it's time to turn around. I'm going with the pitch. At some point we should see the SIVB through the window. And there it is, right on schedule. That's the stage that got us all the way into orbit and gave us that final boost toward the moon. And now it's just hanging out there in space, waiting for us to come back and grab the lunar module. All right, now it's time to stay focused. This is one of the trickiest parts. Let's enable the COAS, the Crew Optical Alignment Sight. We're going to use it to align the crosshairs with the docking target. The little black and white circle painted on the SIVB. So we know we're perfectly lined up for docking. Gotta be steady here, small adjustment, no rushing. Well, it looks like we're nicely aligned with the SIVB. Now I'm going to push forward a little bit, trying to keep that alignment steady using small adjustments. To do that, I'm using the RCS, the Reaction Control System. These are small thrusters placed around the spacecraft that let me control yaw, pitch, and roll. Basically, they let me rotate and fine-tune my orientation in space. So every little tap on the controls fires a short burst from one of those thrusters, nudging the spacecraft just enough to keep the nose pointed right at the docking target. There we go, contact and latching. With the docking complete, it's time for the next step, extracting the lunar module. But before, we need to run through the post-docking checklist. All right, we're ready for separation. I'm going to detach the lunar module from the SIVB and slowly start pushing backward to extract it. All right, extraction complete. And just look at that view. Crazy. If you think about it, the fact that someone actually pulled off this maneuver for real is just insane. It feels almost impossible. The precision, the pressure, doing all of this in space with 1960s technology. Absolutely incredible. Well, that's it for today's mission segment. Thanks for flying along with me in Reentry. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao!